Hello and welcome to Playtonic. In this quick series on Western political thinkers, today we have arrived at the only female scholar who has been acclaimed as a philosopher, Hannah Arendt. So she says that she is thinking without barriers and she is writing for herself. So the methodology that she uses is known as phenomenology, which means that she is writing based on the experiences that she has gone through. Now, she was a German Jew and she was a contemporary of Hitler. So she has seen all the atrocities of Hitler, and then she goes to US and there she writes her theories. So she is a proponent of civic republicanism, civic engagement, and collective deliberation, which we can also call as deliberative democracy. She wants people to, she emphasizes on the activism of civil society. She believes that due to the totalitarian trends rise when the public sphere rolls back, when people do not participate in public sphere. So for that sake, she suggests that people should come, they should engage themselves in communication, they should talk about the politics, they should actively participate in the matters of politics and the matters of state. Therefore, she is a scholar of civic republicanism or deliberative democracy. So, in her book on origins of totalitarianism, so this is a book where she tries to find out why totalitarianism trends rise and how do they survive. So, she criticizes Nazism, Stalinism. She is a Cold War intellectual, right? And for her, totalitarianism is the rule of violence and terror. It is the crisis of 20th century where terror is justified in the name of our ideology. The foundation of totalitarianism is terror. It is a rule of violence. It destroys the public sphere. And it not only controls action and speech, but totalitarianism controls the soul of people. Right? So, terror and ideology are two instruments of totalitarianism. Right? Then she says that due to totalitarianism, superfluous masses become superfluous entities. They have lost the critical ability to think and they believe whatever is told to them. So the ideology that is based on myths and not scientific thinking is projected upon them. And this is what, for example, Hitler's theory of Aryan race superiority. It was an ideology, right? And people buy that ideology because they are superfluous masses. They have lost their ability to think. And she blames modernity for the rise of totalitarianism. And totalitarian state maintains itself by the use of extreme violence, by the use of ideology, which is propaganda plus myths, and then modernity. So what does she mean when she says that modernity is responsible for totalitarianism? She says that modernity began with the explosion of nuclear bomb in Hiroshima, and it symbolizes the killing of humanity, right? It has ended the public sphere. So since the economic sphere has become the most important sphere of life due to modernity, due to capitalism, and due to these new ideas, so people move, the public sphere has rolled back. People are just interested in the business and the economic sphere. That is why there are no more discussions about politics, and the political sphere is completely neglected. So the state becomes totalitarian. So that is how, and also modernity has given rise to centralized bureaucratic administration, right? So this is how she says that totalitarian states maintain themselves, and modernity, decline of public sphere, use of extreme violence, terror, ideology, propaganda, these are the tools of totalitarian states. In her book on human conditions, Hannah Arendt gives her theory of action. Now she divides action into three different forms. One is labor, the other is work, and the last is action, which is also known as zone politikon. So labor, the first stage is animal laboron, which means it is the least important action. There is no control, no freedom, and all animals perform it. Then there is homo faber, the work which only humans can perform, and it is the second most important action. But then here it is not related to thinking, it is just that man is builders, you know. And third is zone politikon, the action where man appears as a political animal. It is a sphere of complete freedom, participation in politics. So political action is the most important action. When we perform it, we attain true human condition. This is what Hannah Arendt says in her theory of action. So for her, action is more important than thinking, and she calls it vita activa, and labor work action is the three ways she has classified it. Now, one of the most important theories that Hannah Arendt gives is the theory of power. So she has given the phenomenological theory of power, and she says that rather than what was generally understood, she gives a different idea about power. See, she believes that whenever people come together in the public sphere for a public purpose, for a common purpose, they act into consort. They act together for common interest. That is how power generates. She differentiates power from strength, force. Strength, she believes, is an individual attribute. An individual can have strength. Force is the attribute of nature. Violence is the attribute of the state. It is used by the authority. Power is not authority, because authority requires legitimation, while power in itself is legitimate, right? And then she goes on to say that power and violence are opposite to each other. If there will be power, there will be no need of violence, but when violence comes in, power goes. So power is a source of freedom. It is exercised in the state of plurality, that is, many people should come together, act in concert, and it is always legitimate by itself. And when it disappears, when people go back to their private spheres. So power is sui generis in collectivity. It emerges on its own whenever people come together, right? Next, we move to her another important concept, that is banality of evil. So banality of evil means evil becomes so normal, so faceless, that it no longer appears as evil, right? So in this context, she gives the example that those people who commit such acts are not psychopaths or sociopaths. They are perfectly normal, ordinary people who simply accept the order of their state with the energy of a good bureaucrat. So even in her book Eichmann in Jerusalem, she mentions this concept that totalitarian states are able to rule because of these bureaucrats, this modern bureaucracy, which has lost the sense of critical analysis. It just follows the order, duty is duty, and they are just ordinary people, but they are not psychopaths or sociopaths that they are killing people or doing some crimes. It is just because they have lost their sense of thinking and contemplating, and they are just being good bureaucrats. Okay. And then one of her quotes, which goes like, the ideal subject of totalitarianism is not the convicted Nazi or dedicated communist. It is the people for whom the distinction between fact and fiction, true and false, no longer exists. So here she is emphasizing that people, because some ideologies, some myths, some propagandas are propagated, so people lose their sense of thinking, they lose their sense of collective action, or they roll back from the public sphere, and then they become agents or ideal subjects of totalitarianism. Next, she believes that power and violence are opposites, where the one rules absolutely, the other is absent. So power, she favors power. Power is sui generis. Whenever people will act in collectivity, it will emerge. And violence is an act of the state. It requires authority, while power is legitimate in itself. And then she says that there is a strange interdependence between thoughtlessness and evil. So if you don't think, if you don't have critical analysis, you may succumb to doing something evil. So this was in short a quick summary of Hannah Arendt's philosophy, of her theory. And with this we have completed all the Western political thinkers in this quick series where we have discussed their quotes, their ideas, and the basic keywords that they have used. You can go through the entire series once again. It will help you in quick revision of all your concepts. I think within an hour you can complete the entire series, and near your exams also you can use it for revision. Stay tuned to Playtonic because we will be coming up with other such series for you. Thank you. Please give your feedback.